Welcome once again, my fellow manipulators of digital fate. I'm 𝑇𝑒𝑐𝑒, this is Capricorn. Today's deck is one that I've been really excited about ever since Bloomburrow released, and I've wanted to build, but I kind of put on the back burner, and I wanted to make sure I absolutely got it out to you guys before Duskmourn came out, because I'm not sure if we're going to have time for something like this once Duskmourn comes out, because there's just so much craziness coming with Duskmourn. But this one is called Gleaming Geardrake, and the idea is to sort of take like the 𝐾𝐫𝐞𝐧𝐵 sort of idea, but instead of being Simic, we're going 𝐼𝑧𝑧𝑒𝑡, because there's just so much ridiculous gas, pardon the pun, in red that can make this go wide artifact deck just be absolutely insane. So we're going to do the damn thing. Before we do, make sure you like the video if you haven't already. It's you guys liking every video that has helped this channel to grow so quickly, and I appreciate the hell out of you guys for that, so smash that like button. Also, make sure you subscribe if you're new here so you never miss an upload. Duskmourn spoiler season is over, and the set is about to release. Early access is happening on September 18th, and I'm doing a 24-hour marathon stream. So not only am I urging you to join me on twitch.tv/QuarantineCapricorn to be a part of that, but those deck techs are going to start hitting the channel the very day early access starts, that Wednesday, and every single day after. My gracious editor, Fingon, is going to be putting in the work to make sure that these decks come out every single day, and all of these decks from early access just start hitting the channel as soon as possible. So thank you so much, Fingon. I hope to see you guys there. This deck is brought to you by Wonders of the First, but I'll tell you about that later. Let's break down the deck. Alright, so this deck's pretty wild. We're playing an 𝐼𝑧𝑧𝑒 artifact deck. We're trying to go as wide as we can with artifacts and be as aggressive as possible. But we have a lot of crazy synergies that line up for just out of nowhere wins a little bit later in the game, which is really, really cool. So the newest card we're using in this deck is my current pet card, Mockingbird. 4 copies of this. For just 1 blue mana, it can come in as a 1/1 flyer that is a copy of any token that we have or any 1-drop. And then if you pay X mana, you can make it cost however much you want, and then come in as a copy of something that costs however much you paid. So if we want to copy a 2-drop, we pay just 1 for X with the 1 blue. And if we want to copy our opponent's Sheoldred, which I'm pretty sure we do in one of the games, we could just pay a total of 4 mana, 1 blue and 3, copy their Sheoldred, except ours has flying, which is really awesome. Now, anytime you have really, really relevant, cheap threats that are good in multiples, that's when the Mockingbird is going to be at its best, and there are a couple of very important cards in this deck that allow us to do that. First off, we have Generous Plunderer. Because this deck relies on going as wide as possible with artifacts, this card is kind of a no-brainer. Even though it's not an artifact itself, it is a 2/2 menace creature which can slip by a lone blocker, and at the beginning of your upkeep you create a treasure token, and when you do, target opponent creates a tapped treasure token, and then whenever Generous Plunderer attacks, it deals damage to defending player equal to the number of artifacts they control. So it's sort of like it attacks as a 3/2 menace, because as long as it gets through, you deal a total of 3 damage, even if you just made that 1 tap treasure token for your opponent. But what's awesome about the Generous Plunderer is it completely punishes other artifact synergies that you're up against. Right now, the 𝐾𝐫𝐞𝐧𝑚 deck is one of the popular decks that I've seen on Ranked Ladder, and this just absolutely demolishes that deck, because any other deck that's going wide with artifacts, the Plunderer is just way better than normal, just without even any extra synergies. It just, they play a bunch of artifacts, and now you punish them if this manages to survive. But why the Plunderer is good in this deck is because it gives us our own artifact every turn, and that artifact is a treasure. So it helps us mana fix, it helps us ramp, and it helps us go wider with artifacts, which is all things we want. So if we can make additional copies of the Plunderer with Mockingbird, it's even better. Now, even if they have a huge board on their side where the menace doesn't matter and you can't get through, if you have a flying version because of Mockingbird, it doesn't matter. You're getting through anyway, right? Unless they have 2 flyers in the air, because it will also have the menace along with the flying. So you can get through not only for kind of double damage for however many artifacts you have, because you have the original Plunderer and the Mockingbird, but in situations where their board is wide, you can even still at least get through with the Mockingbird, even if you hold the original Plunderer back, while also generating double treasures every turn. and then getting all of your artifact synergies, as well as a crazy amount of ramp, as well as some sacrifice payoffs for just sacrificing those treasures to begin with. And the best one is Gleaming Geardrake. 2 mana for a 1/1 artifact creature drake with flying, and when it enters you investigate, and whenever you sacrifice an artifact, you put a +1/+1 counter on Gleaming Geardrake. Even without that last ability, getting a 1/1 flyer that is an artifact that also gives you another artifact in the form of a clue token for just the 1 card for 2 mana is insane in this deck. You get 2 artifacts onto the battlefield for 2 mana. One of them is an evasive threat, the other one can draw you cards in the long term, and sacrifice while doing so that you can trigger your sacrifice benefits. The main one being Gleaming Geardrakes. Whenever you sack an artifact, you put a +1/+1 counter on the Geardrake. So sacking the clue is going to put counters on this, sacking those treasures we're making with the Plunderer is going to put counters on this, and Gleaming Geardrake makes another really good target for the Mockingbird. Even though the Geardrake already has flying, and the Mockingbird's not going to become a better version because of the flying, still getting 2 Geardrakes is amazing. The Mockingbird itself making another clue token when it becomes a copy of the Geardrake is also really good. And then every single artifact you sacrifice is putting a counter on both the original Geardrake and the Mockingbird version, so you can get exponential value out of that as well. So we're going wide with artifacts, we're getting value off sacking them, we're getting value if we keep them, and we're utilizing some of that value from keeping them with Dowsing Device. 2 mana for an artifact. When it or another artifact enters, target creature you control gets +1/+0 and haste until end of turn, and then you transform Dowsing Device if you control 4 or more artifacts. So at the very least, we're getting haste and +1 attack on one of our creatures, and then immediately flipping this into a land so that we have more mana so that we can play another artifact that we might not otherwise get to play, or any other 1-drops for that matter, with this 1 extra land. But if we can get multiple triggers off the Dowsing Device, sometimes we can swing in for a ton of damage out of nowhere that our opponent didn't see coming. And what's even better is because everything in this deck costs 2 or less, we end up just vomiting everything out of our hands so quick that we now are out of gas, but we have a ton of stuff on the board. So when it flips to Geode Grotto, we have plenty of mana to now just invest into the Geode Grotto as a mana sink and a huge board of artifacts, so that one of our flyers can just swing out of nowhere for an absolute metric ton of damage by getting +6/+0 and haste by tapping the Geode Grotto and the 3 mana. So really good on both sides. It counts as an artifact, it's giving things haste and extra power so that they can get through, and it's an absolute insane win condition a little bit later on after it flips. But the most overlooked part about it is the fact that it can give you mana right away, and in a lot of ways it sort of almost is counted as part of our mana base because it can so consistently flip. It's very easy to just drop this, have it immediately flip into a land, get the value off of it, and have an extra land, while also playing a land that turn, so it's like you got to play 2 lands for free. It's just kind of crazy. Also, we have Case of the Filched Falcon. This is another 1 mana card. When it enters, you get to investigate, so it does create an artifact token that feeds into all of our synergies. But we solve this if at the end of our turn we control at least 3 artifacts, which is very hard for this deck not to do. We're just vomiting out artifacts constantly. When it's solved, we can pay 3 mana at any time to put 4 +1/+1 counters on target non-creature artifact. It becomes a 0/0 bird creature with flying in addition to its other types. So this turns any of our little artifacts that we're going wide with into a 4/4 flying threat for 3 mana at instant speed. So all of these other cards that are making treasure tokens or creating clue tokens are now able to become even more board presence that can swing in and end a game super quick. And when this clue enters, it can even trigger the Dowsing Device, which is really nuts. But there's some other tricks that we can utilize, making the 0/0 with the 4 counters when this is solved, that we'll get into in just a little bit. But first, let's start at the bottom of the curve and just talk about all of the different artifacts we're going wide with. So we're going to have 4 Spyglass Siren at the 1-drop slot because it is a nice little creature that helps chip away for damage while also giving us pretty much an artifact token for free. And it's a map token, so we can just pay 1 mana to sack it, trigger all of our Gleaming Geardrakes, and then maybe even get a counter on one of our other creatures if we don't hit a land off the top. But if we do hit a land off the top, then we can play another land, put out even more cards, and keep everything snowballing. We've also got 4 Mishra's Research Desk, because not only can we sacrifice this for value and trigger all of our sacrifice synergies, but we can do it another time from the graveyard. We can unearth it for 2 and use it immediately. Now, this is where some of my synergies come into play with Case of the Filched Falcon. When you unearth this, the card as a whole gets haste. So if you unearth a Mishra's Research Desk, instead of sacking it to exile the top 2 again, you could just spend 3 to turn it into that 0/0 bird with 4 +1/+1 counters on it with flying. And then because it has haste from the unearth, it can swing in as a 4/4 flyer immediately with haste. And granted, you'll have to sacrifice it at end of turn because of the unearth ability, but there are so many circumstances where you get your opponent close to death and you just need a little bit of extra pressure, and this helps you kill them now instead of next turn. You just bring this back, turn this thing into the 4/4 so that you can swing with it right away, kill them now, not give them another turn to potentially stabilize. And that can be absolutely insane. But even if you don't do that, just getting to sack this for value 2 different times, and both times triggering your Geardrake, can be really, really good on its own. We've also got 4 Gingerbrutes. This is a nice 1/1 haste that can become somewhat unblockable if you pay the 1 mana. Could also sack it to gain life, which is nice, but it just helps us go wide with even more artifacts. And it's not the best target for the Mockingbird, because we've already gone over the best targets, but it is a nice plan B target where you can get a flying version of this by just paying the 1 blue mana on the Mockingbird, and just give you even more board presence and help chip away at their life total even sooner. We're also going to run just 1 Lost Jitte. This card is good enough you could run more than them. I'm only running 1 because it's legendary, but it's definitely way too good to not run at least 1. It equips for just 1 mana, and as soon as that creature deals combat damage at all, you put a charge counter on it, and then you can immediately use that charge counter to untap your land so that you can play another 1-drop artifact, which can be crazy by itself. But the fact that you have the versatility to make it so that target creature can't block this turn by removing a counter is also nuts. And it doesn't have to be, target creature can't block the thing that's equipping the Jitte. As long as you just get that counter onto the Jitte, now if they play, they finally get 1 flyer into play to block your Geardrake or to block your Mockingbird, or maybe they finally get their second flyer into play to block a Mockingbird that's a copy of a Plunderer with Menace. Well, now you can just make it so that one of those can't block, and it can't block anything. It doesn't matter what the Jitte is equipped to. It doesn't even matter if they kill the thing that the Jitte is equipped to, and it's just sitting there on the battlefield, not equipped to anything. So in a lot of ways, this can just help you close out a game with that mode. And then you can also just remove charge counters from this to buff up whatever creature it's equipped to. And sometimes that's enough to just get, eke out a little bit of extra damage and just win the game a turn sooner instead of waiting until next turn. So Lost Jitte is really good. I would not fault you for playing more than 1 copy, but because there are so many amazingly synergistic cards that we want to fit into this deck, we are going to run just the 1 because it's legendary. But moving on, we've got 1 Sir Ginger, and we're running just 1 of this for similar reasons. It is too good to not include, but there's so many other cards that aren't legendary that want spots in the deck that using more than 1 of this seems like a bit much. But a 3/1 legendary artifact creature food knight for just 2 mana that if they have a planeswalker gets trample, gets hexproof, gets haste is kind of nuts. But what really makes this great is the fact that whenever another artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on Sir Ginger and scry 1. So in this way, it's almost like it's a 5th copy of Gleaming Geardrake, which is kind of awesome. You can't make a copy of it with Mockingbird, really. I mean, you could if you really wanted to, just if you wanted to have a flying version. you'd have to sacrifice the 𝐾𝐫𝐞𝐧𝐵 to the legendary rule, but that's not always the worst thing because it's going to trigger all of your other sacrifice synergies. It's going to put a counter on the new flying Mockingbird version of 𝐾𝐫𝐽, as well as counters on Gleaming Geardrakes and stuff like that. So even that might not be the worst play ever. But mainly, this is just a 5th Gleaming Geardrake, and it will scry you one. But what's really cool about this one is you don't have to sacrifice the artifacts in order to get the counter. If an artifact just dies some other way, you can still get the counters on the 𝐾𝐫𝐽, whereas with Gleaming Geardrake you can't. So if they start targeting some of your other stuff with removal, you can still get the +1/+1 counter value with 𝐾𝐫𝐽, and that's really nice. For removal, we've got some interesting options. We've got 4 Yotia Declares War. Those of you who've been watching the channel for a while know that this is one of my pet cards. Chapter 1 gives you a 0/2 colorless 𝑇𝑒𝑟𝑟𝑎𝑐ℎ artifact creature token with flying. Chapter 2 allows you to tap any number of untapped artifacts you want and deal a damage to target creature, or I think it's any target creature or planeswalker equal to the number of artifacts you tap. And then Chapter 3 turns any artifact into an artifact creature with base toughness 4/4. So this kind of does everything we want. Not only can it add an artifact to the field to go wide with artifacts like we want, it's an artifact with flying that we can pump up later, whether it be with Chapter 3 of Yotia Declares War itself, or maybe it's by using the backside of a Dowsing Device with 𝐾𝐫𝐞𝐳, or maybe it's just the Dowsing Device by itself. Sometimes we can get in for an extra point of damage or two by pumping up the 𝐾𝐽𝑒𝑟𝑟𝑎𝑐ℎ, having the 𝐾𝐽𝑒𝑟𝑟𝑎𝑐ℎ pump itself when it comes into play and triggers the Dowsing Device, and just getting in for a little bit of hasty damage. This deck just has so many ways of getting in for little bits of damage to just kind of nibble them down, and before they know it, they just are almost out of life, and now you can swing with some huge damage later on. So it's absolutely worth it to get in for chip damage whenever you can. But what I love about this card the most is Chapter 2. Just allows you to remove a lot of times a really big threat. Since everything in this deck is putting tons of artifacts onto the battlefield, it's really easy to, very early in the game, be able to kill things that are usually, you know, outclassing the kind of removal you might have at that point in the game, and without giving up, you know, your value of creating your 𝐾𝐽𝑒𝑟𝑟𝑎𝑐ℎ or getting Chapter 3 to triggers. So really easy way of taking down big targets with Chapter 2 in this deck, since there's so many artifacts. And there's some really sneaky ways to use Chapter 3 as well. Chapter 3 is going to trigger right after you draw a card. And what you can do is, if say you have like a clue token or some kind of artifact that you know you're going to turn into a 4/4 with this, it's base toughness 4/4. And if you remember Case of the Filched Falcon, it creates a base toughness 0/0 bird creature token that puts 4 +1/+1 counters on it. So what you can do is, if you have a solved Case of the Filched Falcon, you can wait until Yotia Declares War triggers Chapter 3, target something to make it into a 4/4, and if you're in full control mode in MTG Arena, in response, you can sacrifice your Case of the Filched Falcon before it's actually a creature, because you can only target non-creature artifacts with this, and target the same creature, and then it becomes a 0/0 that gets 4 +1/+1 counters and flying, and then also you resolve the Yotia Declares War Chapter 3 trigger, and until end of turn it becomes base power and toughness 4/4. So it ends up becoming an 8/8 flyer, and a lot of times if the clue token was already out last turn, which it kind of has to be in order for you to trigger this, you know, on your draw step, it's not going to have haste. It's not going to have, or it is going to have haste. It's not going to have summoning sickness because it was already on the battlefield. So it just swings in for 8 damage out of nowhere. And sometimes your opponent just doesn't see that coming, and it just closes out the game right then and there, and it's kind of nuts. In addition to the 4 Yotia Declares War, we also have 4 Legion Extruder as another piece of removal, a prime piece of removal. 2 mana artifact. I'm tired. Give me a break. 2 mana artifact. When it enters, it deals 2 damage to any target. So this is slightly overcosted shock, but it counts as an artifact, and it stays on the battlefield as an artifact. So even if it didn't do anything else, being able to take out a relevant 2 toughness creature on turn 2 with this, and then just have an artifact that sticks around for all of your artifact synergies, is pretty amazing as it stands. But the fact that you can also pay 2 mana, tap this, sack any artifact to create a 3/3 Golem artifact creature token is bananas. It lets you turn non-creature artifacts into 3/3s while triggering sacrifice synergies, putting more counters on Gleaming Geardrake, Sir Ginger. It just does everything you want to do. And if they try to kill one of your creatures, you can just tap the Legion Extruder in 2 mana in response and sacrifice it in response to just replace it with another 3/3. So you almost sort of have a little bit of a, it's almost like removal protection in a way. Granted, you're not going to be able to like save what makes a Geardrake so good or whatnot, but any of your artifact creatures that get targeted with removal, you can respond by sacking them in response, and the removal ends up kind of being wasted, and you get a 3/3. And you can keep doing that with the 3/3, right? You can even chump block their dudes if you need to just stall out the game until you can get the cards you need to win. You can chump block with something, sack it in response, make a 3/3, and then do it all over again next turn. So Legion Extruder, absolutely amazing. And then the last card is just one copy of Magda the Hoardmaster. I wasn't sure about using this at first, but there are just enough things in this deck that commit crimes that I actually think it's worth it. 2/2 legendary creature Dwarf Berserker for 2. Whenever you commit a crime, you create a tapped treasure token, but this ability triggers only once each turn. And then you can sacrifice 3 treasures to create a 4/4 red scorpion dragon creature token with flying and haste, but activate only as a sorcery. So sometimes this thing comes onto the battlefield when you've already been utilizing the Plunderer, and you already have three treasures. So you can just immediately sacrifice 3 treasures, make a 4/4 with haste, and put 3 counters on your Geardrake, and just Alpha Strike for a win, which is kind of nuts on its own. But you can also just start to build up treasure tokens by committing crimes so that you can use for all of your other synergies. And we have plenty of things that commit crimes in this deck. Playing Legion Extruder will commit a crime. Targeting anything with Chapter 2 of Yotia Declares War counts as committing a crime, even if you don't kill the thing. Even if you don't tap any artifacts, you still get to target something, which is awesome. The Jitte, just targeting a creature to not be able to block, even if you don't care about them not being able to block, can just count as committing a crime. Even just the Plunderer, on your turn during your upkeep, you have to target an opponent to create a tapped treasure token when you create yours. So that counts as committing a crime that turn. So there's just so many little situational ways that Magda can get advantage, and I think it's worth running 1 copy. Although I would say this was the last card I added to the deck, so if you were going to make any changes to this deck and want to include other cards, I think Magda might be the first to be cut. But then we talk about the mana base. What's cool about this deck is that it only needs 17 lands because it has so many cards that kind of are lands in a way. Plunderer makes treasures every turn. Dowsing Device flips into a land almost immediately, almost always. It's just bananas. And then if we're desperate, Mishra's Research Desk can dig for a land for very, very cheap. Spyglass Siren, you can sack the map token for just 1 mana, dig for a land. There's so many ways to create mana or dig for lands super early that we actually get away with not running as many lands, which means we can keep our threat density way, way higher and actually include all of these cards in the deck. So we're running 2 islands, 2 mountains, just 1 Restless Spire because we want the deck to be fast, so we don't want too many tapped lands. But I do think it's worth it to have just 1 of these man lands because you're probably not going to use multiple in the same turn, but if you do happen to get 1 of these online, sometimes it can be just enough extra pressure to really make the difference. And then we've got 4 Shivan Reef and 4 Spirebluff Canal because they come in untapped at a time when it's the most important that they're untapped early in the game when we're trying to be aggressive and get ahead. We've got 1 Mirrex because it can be whichever color we need the turn it comes into play, but then it can just endlessly create artifact tokens for us every turn, which is super, super powerful. We've got 1 Thrawn Portal because it's essentially like a 5th Shivan Reef. I wouldn't want to add more than just 1 of these because it does ping you for a damage no matter what, even if you use it for colorless. But I think as just a little bit of extra consistency as far as a land that can come in untapped in the early game and give us whatever colors we need, I think adding 1 is justified here. And then we've got 1 Mycosynth Gardens because it can become a copy of any artifact that we have already, which can just be insanely good under the right circumstances. We can make, you know, another Gleaming Geardrake or another Dowsing Device right before it flips. And if we create a copy of the Dowsing Device, what's cool is this thing doesn't have a backside, so it doesn't flip. It'll stay the Dowsing Device forever, which means for the rest of the game, everything we play that is an artifact, every artifact that enters the battlefield will be able to give something +1/+0 and haste. Every single one for the rest of the game, because this thing will never flip, and it's amazing. So if you have the opportunity to do that, definitely do that. And then we've got just one Fomori Vault. This is the one land I might consider cutting if I wanted to, you know, go up on a colored land, or, you know, try out a different land that might not be in this build. Because it's only really good later in the game, and this deck is trying to win early on. That being said, there is some good synergy in being able to search for just the right card to end the game. Sometimes finding just the right thing on just the right turn so you can just get through and win can be super, super crucial. So one Fomori Vault, just because we have so many artifacts in the deck, it basically lets us tutor every turn, which is kind of cool. Just for those control games that end up dragging out super long. So this is the deck. It's a ton of fun to play. I'm curious if maybe there might be an even crazier version once Duskmourn releases, but we'll have to experiment and see where it goes. For now, this is pretty cool, and let's check out the games. I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's video, Wonders of the First. Wonders of the First is a brand new collectible card game similar to games like Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, featuring a unique action-based resource economy that helps avoid pitfalls like Mana Flood or Mana Screw, and a battlefield containing multiple realms that unlock over time as you fight for control of the stones. The first 400 card set is called Existence and will launch to retail in the fall, but playtest team starter kits are available to order now. And they haven't forgotten about all you collectors out there. The game contains alternate borderless art variants, as well as highly sought after limited edition numbered prints, culminating in a 1-of-1 stone foil. And the best part is that the developers have a community first approach, with 8 print and play decks available on their website, as well as a version of the game available on Tabletop Simulator, all for free. For more information, be sure to check out wondersccg.com today. That's wondersccg.com. Alright, we'll keep this. We'll go Spirebluff Canal on 1. I think we just start with a Gingerbrute, honestly. Get in a little extra damage. Now, because of the Fomori Vault, we're not going to be able to play the Geardrake on 2. But that's okay. We'll jam a Plunderer. Force him to use removal on the Plunderer, or else we get the treasure. And then we get the Geardrake and the Gingerbrute, which would be gnarly. But even if he kills the Plunderer, we just stay ahead. We hit him again with the Gingerbrute, whatever else we play next turn, so it's kind of good for us no matter what he does. Helix is a bummer, though. Not gonna lie. Get all the little boys out, smack in, get things moving. Forge. We're racing a Forge, guys. This is Boros token control. Dowsing Device. Well, that will immediately flip into the red that we need. I think we keep it. Smack for 4. And then solve the case. So next turn we Dowsing Device. Flip the Dowsing Device. And then play the Research Desk. Probably. Okay. Give me a bunch of map tokens. All right. I'm here for that. Thank you, sir. May I have another? Flip. Do we crack the maps? Nah, we wait to crack the map until after we have the Geardrakes down, right? Yeah, we'll just hit him for 5. That seems fine. But we're forcing him to use up his spot removal on things that aren't the Geardrake, which is really nice. I mean, do we just swing for 8? We could just swing for 8. Nah, we'll get down our stuff first, right? And then next turn we just win no matter what. So what's great about this is we're going wide with a bunch of stuff that stays if he has Sunfall. Right? We don't want him to Sunfall, but chances are he's gonna Sunfall. But we've got all this value now. Granted, we are working against the clock with the Forge, but this thing grants haste. If he doesn't Sunfall now, he's just dead. He's just dead. And if he did have a Sunfall, I think he would have just slammed it. I don't think he'd be thinking this hard. Yeah, if it was me, I think the Death Race set would be Kamigawa, Kaladesh, and a new plane. I think that would be smart. Alright, so we win. So basically we win. Is what you're telling me. Insane. Oh my god. 10-1. Get out of here. Get out of here. Just a Mycosynth Garden? Nothing else? We can't keep that. This we can keep. This is fine. We'll toss back a case, I think. Or do we? Do we toss back the research desk? No, we'll toss back the case. Alright, we're going to start with Spyglass Siren. Another case, okay. So we'll go case. And then we'll go case. My dog's excited. Swing. Trigger, trigger. Boy, I tell ya. Boy, I tell ya. We do need 3 mana, though. Which we do not currently have. Hey, now we do. Now we do. I think we probably just go for it, right? Although maybe we should have put it on the map. Alright, well, we get rid of the Sonar Strike. It's not the worst thing in the world. Let's tap this for colorless. Let's play a Gingerbrute. Jacob doesn't know what to do. He's gonna counter the Gingerbrute. Okay, I guess. Let's crack the map token. Plunderer, absolutely. Swing for 2. I kind of like this. He's clearly playing control, and we're really forcing him to contend with the Siren. Sort of like one threat at a time instead of letting him just, you know, wrath everything away. We'll attack. We'll see if he deals with this. I don't even know if we play the Plunderer. We might want to wait until he kills the Siren. Yeah, let's just play the research desk out. And we'll end the turn. Solve the case of the Filched Falcon. Alright, he's gonna kill the reef. In response, we're gonna sack it. And then we're going to I guess draw a card, huh? Take action. We'll find a mountain. Games are going well, Chunky. Thanks for hanging out. And now we can still crack the research desk if we need to. That's fine. That's what we want. We want him to just be using up his removal, having to 1-for-1 every creature, and not letting him get a ton of value by taking out multiple with a board wipe, which is why we're not turning on any of the other cases yet. My turn. Okay, we'll crack the research desk. See what we can find. We got lands. I'll take them. That means we would have had like basically 2 dead draws. And now we don't. That other land is gone and we get to dig into actual cards, which is nice. I think before we crack the case, we need to force him to deal with the Plunderer. He already knows about the Plunderer, right? So let's force him to deal with the thing he knows about. Force him to deal with each threat one at a time. Okay, he counters it. That's fine. And now we'll play another threat. We just don't want multiple threats on the board that he can sweep. That's the big thing. We gotta force him into a position where he runs out of spot removal and is forced to use his sweeper as spot removal. And then we just go ham. I said deluge wrong. When did I even say deluge? I never even said deluge. I think you crazy. That's what I think. We're gonna play a Legion Extruder while we have enough mana left over to potentially pay 2 if he has a counterspell that requires us to pay 2.
Did IQs just drop sharply while I was away?
Deluge of Doom? When did anyone play a Deluge of Doom? Oh. Okay, I got you. Alright, so we force him to waste a Spell Gyre again. Which is nice, to say the least. Swing in for 1. Another Sonar Strike. Well, nothing we can do about that. But he is running out of gas. Which is really, really nice. Let's see if we can draw into a 1-drop with this. No, just a Plunderer. It's okay though. We'll save the Plunderer until next turn. Swings for 2. He's trying to dig. He's trying to dig. He is trying to dig. Alright, now he's pretty much out of gas, and we want to beat the No More Lies. So we're just gonna jam these out. Yotia Declares War with Case of the Filched Falcon is actually pretty nuts. I guess it's just another opportunity for you to make fun of me, Finn, if I mispronounce something in one of the shorts. Finn always loves to do that. Swings with his 3/4. No blocks. I mean, we will win that race, for sure. Take action. Definitely doesn't have a sweeper right now. Submit 0. Alright, let's see what we can do here. Schmackety schmackety. Take 7. And we'll play out the canal. Sometimes it's right to keep this in hand as bluff. But I think with 2 research desks in the yard, we want to get as high on mana as possible. So we're just that much more likely to be able to play things that we draw into. I think we can probably... I was going to say we could probably win next turn. Alright, well, we'll crack this clue to draw, and then we'll get to investigate. Not the worst, honestly. We still have another case. In fact, it's possible we could just win right here. Yeah, because that becomes a 4/4 with Yotia. Oh, it's already a creature! We had to do it in response. If I had done it in response... If I had done it in response, it would be an 8/8 right now. Which would have been gnarly. Alright, here's what we're gonna do. It has haste, right? So we turn it into a 4/4. What's his last card? And it has haste. Haha, let's go. Let's go. Alright. Another one lander. This one seems fine though. We have a lot of cheap stuff. Let's just do the thing. Even if we end up having to sack the map token right away to the Spyglass Siren, I think it's probably okay. If he's worried about my board presence, he hits the case. If he's worried about my removal, he hits the extruder, right? Either way, I don't think he hits the research desk. And he can't hit the most important cards, which are the Plunderer and the Mockingbirds, so... Yotia. Extruder gone. Okay, so he's planning on putting some serious board presence down. That's what I get out of that. Discard a non-land card. Sure. Not a problem. Not a problem. I had a feeling. Alright. So next turn we play the Plunderer and the Spire. And then we should be able to start popping off. Ooh, maybe we don't. Maybe we play a Shivan Reef. Let's swing. Alright, we're gonna go colorless. And then we'll go case. And that'll be that. Force him to have removal. Still putting the pressure on. We could probably just keep the Spire in our hand forever. Try and make it so we're not losing life to level 2. And not triggering his level 3 once he levels that up. Shielded. That's fine. We'll just copy the Shielded, right? That seems fine to me. Flying Shielded seems pretty good. Not worried about it in the least. Not worried about it in the least. You didn't get a notification when I started streaming? Sorry, friend. But thank you for wishing me a happy affiliate anniversary. I appreciate it. Alright, we leveled up. Each opponent's upkeep. I mean, I think we race him. I think we try to race him. Discard. We could... Here, let's do this. Add a colorless, add a colorless. Draw a card. Lose life, gain life. Dodge the trigger. Draw for turn. Lose life, gain life. We'll play this guy out. Keep 2 cards in our hand. And swing. He draws nothing. He can't hit us for damage next turn. Seems okay to me. Keeping him at arm's length. Dude, a flying 𝐾𝐿𝑑red is terrifying. Alright. We'll go to 5. I don't think he can do the last 5 damage to us. Okay. Makes sense. Makes sense. Do we Fomori Vault? No, let's do this. Let's crack the research desk. Oh boy. Whenever you commit a crime, you don't have really any ways to commit a crime, right? I feel like the Legion Extruder might be better here. At least it is an artifact, right? So we'll just do that. We'll shorten the clock a bit. Keep 2 cards in our hand. We can make a copy of the Legion Extruder to sack to the first Legion Extruder to get a 3/3 if we want. Another 𝐾𝐿𝑑red. Of course you have another 𝐾𝐿𝑑red. Of course you do. Let me think. Is there anything we can do right now? No. Alright, we could get in for 1. I think I have a plan. 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 All right. That'll give me 3 artifacts to turn on the Case of the Filched Falcon. Pass the turn. We have to hold up a blocker. So we solve it. We block the 𝐾𝐿𝑑red. We sack the Brute to the Legion Extruder at instant speed. To get a 3/3. Uh-oh. I think that's gonna do it. think that's gonna do it. We actually had a chance to.
Home, and I don't appreciate it when people touch my things.
Oh no, he did the. Okay. He screwed up. He screwed up. If he made us discard, we take an extra 2 damage from the bandit's talent. And the 2 from drawing off Sheoldred, and we're dead. But he got greedy. So we block here. And then in response, we sack it to the Legion Extruder. And then that's 7 damage we can do next turn. Which, I don't know if that's enough. I don't think that's enough, right? We need, like, just a little bit more somehow. We need just a little more somehow. We need to kill the Sheoldred somehow, and I don't think we can. It's so close, though. It is so, so close. 1, 2. We're 1 mana off of attacking with the Restless Spire and getting the 4/4, which would have been the 9. If we had 1 more mana out, if I had played one of these Spirebluff Canals, we would be fine. So I think what we gotta do is play you, crack it, that's not good enough. That is not good enough. Yeah, we die. Oh, that is so frustrating. We were so close. We were so, so close. One more mana. Or top decking a Legion Extruder. Man, that's crazy. There's probably some other ways too that we could have pulled it off. My turn. Is there a way to do anything? I don't think so. Oh, that was so close. I can't believe how close that was. Alright, another 1-lander, but it's fine. We've got 3 1-drops, and if we just get 1 more land, we can get the Dowsing Device down and flip that into a land, so we're going to keep it. And we'll jam a Spyglass Siren. Let's attack. And play another Spyglass Siren. I was tempted to crack the map token, but if we don't hit a land, it puts us pretty far back, I think. Lockdown, nice. Honestly, kind of glad we got the lockdown out of his hand this early, though. So, don't really have a problem with that at all. Let's just get the Dowsing Device down. And everything we play is just gonna have haste. Including Sir Ginger. Fountain Port, sure. My dog is snoring. He's so snory. Let's see. Fortunately, he's got a fish to block with. And we do not get any toughness support. That makes it really tricky. So, with that in mind, I think we do Yotia Declares War on Chapter 1. And we swing with a 1/2 flyer. We start racing him that way. We can use Chapter 2. Tap the Dowsing Device. Well, we'd probably end up flipping it this turn. So maybe we tap the 0/2 instead. Oh, I guess we don't have to tap anything. Because the fish is gone. The fish is gone. Thank you. Thank you. Sir Ginger gains haste. Then we drop a Gingerbrute. And then we smack in for 5. Seems pretty good to me. And those map tokens he gave us, we get to turn into a 4/4 next turn. Brutal. I'm not even worried about the Sunfall, to be honest. What's the best case scenario here? Save the Legion Extruder for the 2/2, I think. So we'll go like this. And swing 4. In case he has removal, we can still... Okay. And then we'll just play the Yotia Declares War on Chapter 1. Just conserve as much value as possible. And now the case is solved. One more mana and we can start using Geode Grotto, which is going to be bananas. Archangel Elspeth. Sure. Make a 1/1 lifelinker? Or do you make this into a dude and put 2 counters on it? Yeah, I think that's what we're going to do. Which is fine. I'm not worried about it. Oh, no, you're going to make a 1/1 lifelinker. Okay. We will tap the Clue to kill the 1/1 lifelinker. So much potential here. I just have to figure out exactly what to do with it. I think the correct play is to kill this before it gets counters from the Archangel. Right? And then... and I guess we just play another case. Because if we can just get to one more land, we can start making whatever one creature is on the board get a huge, huge buff. Which could be insane. Yeah, see? Four flying ornithopter. Let's make... oh, it comes in as an O2. It doesn't copy the buff. That's a bummer. I thought it would. Let's go with a clue token here. In the air. And let's see if he has that instant speed removal. Do you? Do you have it? He does. He does. It's fine though. Like, we're so wide with artifacts right now. Artifacts that can't get hit by Sunfall. We can just slowly turn them into 3/3s. Force him to deal with every creature one at a time and not just sweep them all up with a Sunfall. Eventually, when one sticks, we just buff it to high hell with the Geode Grotto and get through and win. Actually, he's so low, we probably don't even need to buff it with the Geode Grotto. But even if he had a ton of life... Alright, we'll block here. He goes up to 4. What else do you have? Is that a Sunfall? Okay. That is fine. If we had a way to make a 1-mana creature, we could actually give it haste with the Grotto right now and swing in for lethal. Although we do have this, so I think we're still okay. We'll find out. Let's see. Does he have it? Does he have it? He doesn't have it. Let's go. Thanks so much for checking out my channel. I'd like to give a huge shout out to all of my patrons over at Patreon. Without you guys, this channel would not be possible, so honestly, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of your contributions. If you haven't yet, like and subscribe. The more likes we get and the quicker we get them, the bigger this channel will grow and the faster it will grow. I'd love nothing more than this channel to become something very special for you guys, but it's entirely up to you how fast that happens. Also, if you'd like more deck text, that's somewhere over there. And if you'd like to see what else the channel's been up to lately, that's somewhere up that way. Also, subscribe, circle below, do all the things.
Nuts.